Louis T Network is powered by Music Head University. Music Heads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louis T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your host, Louis T. Thank you for joining me. I had a brain fart that I couldn't remember. Is it supposed to be the left or the right? I was like, wait a minute. I've been told about this a million times. I've got this. So tonight's going to be a little bit of a different stream because this is not something that I generally partake in. I think last year I did a few videos on some of the undrafted guys. I think I was going out of town and I wanted to have some content out for you guys. So I threw up a couple of those videos. And that really was in response to Amani Rodgers the year before making the roster. So I said, you know what? I won't be as dismissive this year when it comes to the undrafted guys, right? The priority free agents, if you will. That was last year. This year, it's a little bit different. Matter of fact, it's a lot different this year because of where we are in our developmental phase. When you're rebuilding, or as they call it, recalibrating and finding their north. Roster spots are up for grabs. And I've talked about this all offseason. Nobody's safe except for the core guys. And we've gone through the list of those guys. I don't have to keep naming those guys. You know who the core guys are. But for a guy like, say, Chris Rodriguez Jr., who was a 6th-round pick that this group did not select, he's not safe. Hence, 2 undrafted backs have been brought in, and his spot can easily be taken, right? And you could just go down the list of guys, right, that are here, but are they truly here? Because they're not guaranteed a spot. John Ridgeway, we like him. He's not guaranteed a spot on this roster. Phidarian Mathis, I don't think you guys care about Phidarian Mathis, to be honest with you. He hasn't shown us anything. And the fact that he was a 2nd-round pick doesn't even matter because he really wasn't a 2nd-round pick and shouldn't have been selected there anyway. So if they cut him, you're not even going to blink. You're just going to say, well, another wasted 2nd-round pick, and no one's going to even bat an eye. He's not safe, okay? So when I tell you that nobody's safe, nobody's safe. And these undrafted guys, if all things are equal between a back end of the roster guy from the last regime and an undrafted guy or a back end of the draft guy that was selected this year from their draft, from their first draft class, they're going to take the guy that they brought in here. Whether he's undrafted or a late round draft pick, that guy's going to be on the roster over a guy that was here the year before. So a guy like Amani Rodgers, who we've been talking up, a guy like Cole Turner, who we've been talking up, they're not guaranteed anything. Coulson Yankoff can come in here and take one of their jobs if he comes in here and shows and proves. Nobody's safe except for the core guys. So this year, undrafted guys mean a little bit more. They hit a little bit different because they got a realistic shot at making this football team. All right. They just got to come in here and take advantage of whatever opportunities they get, show that they belong in the NFL, that they should have been drafted, and the more opportunities that they seize, the more opportunities that they'll get, and eventually they'll catch someone's eye. And if they do enough during the preseason, when the bullets really start flying, because it's one thing to do something in camp and in practice, it's another thing to do it when the stage is bright or big and the lights are bright, which is in the preseason, which is what's going to ultimately determine whether you make the roster or not. And you know what? I think sometimes we get caught up on the 53-man roster, and I get it, and rightfully so, right? That's what matters. That's what we really care about when the games start to actually matter and count in September. But a lot of these guys, they're fighting for their NFL lives, and that includes being on the practice squad. So don't just dismiss them if they don't make the roster. They could be on the practice squad, and that's just as important for a lot of these guys who weren't drafted at all. So not making the team isn't the end-all, be-all for some of these guys. Getting onto the practice squad is a big effing deal when you're undrafted. So That's something else to keep in mind when you think about these guys. Can they get onto the practice squad? Because getting onto the practice squad is you're one step away from being on an NFL roster. And whether it's here or somewhere else, you just want to keep yourself in a position where if an opportunity presents itself, whether it's here with Washington or with another team, you're right there within striking distance. Being on a practice squad puts you in that position, and that's also something to consider. That said, I want to start the show off with this. I know you guys saw Adam Schefter on Pat McAfee's show yesterday, I believe it was. And Adam Schefter said that it was never going to be Drake May here in Washington. What had I been telling you guys for about the last month and a half? I said the front office, which was Lance Newmark and Adam Peters, liked who? J.J. McCarthy. I said the coaching staff, which was Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, and company, like Jaden Daniels. And they were going to come together and they were going to make the decision that they thought would be best for this organization. But it was those two guys. And I said that prior to any of the official visits, prior to the combine. I said, that's what I've gathered, right? That's the feeling that I get by listening to them speak and collecting context clues, looking at the history of Adam Peters, looking at the history of Lance Newmark. This is what I think they're thinking. And I can't know, right? I didn't know. But I said, this is what I think. I said, I think one side wants McCarthy, the other side wants Daniels. Nowhere in that equation fit Drake May. And I think a lot of you got confused throughout the process as to what I liked, and you weren't listening to what I was saying about what I think they like, which is more important than what I like. You know, what I think is, best and what they think is best are two different things. And the thing that's most important is what they think, or at least what I think they think. Okay. Not what I think. So at this point, it doesn't matter, but it kind of just goes in line with what we had been talking about throughout the process, but that's no here nor there. Let's get to the reason you showed up tonight. And that's these undrafted guys. And I actually thought the number could be higher. After you sign 20, 3 free agents or whatever it was this offseason, when you turn the roster over the way that we did, I thought it could actually be like 15 dudes in here. I thought the number could be higher. So 11 is a good number. Don't get me wrong. I was shocked that it wasn't 15. Okay. That said, it's a good mixture of different positions, but you can tell the positions that they still think need some type of work or at least more competition. Like, notice that there wasn't any edge rushers taken here. Notice that there weren't any there was one more position, linebacker. They didn't take any linebackers in this mix, right? So they're telling you with what they didn't bring in here, how they feel about certain positions. And they could have been interested in a guy or two at those positions that I just mentioned, and they decided to go elsewhere, right? Or someone else offered them more money. So whatever the case may be, you never know. They ended up with these 11 guys, and we're going to go through each of them one by one. I'm going to talk about what I liked, what I didn't like. So tonight, I'm not a big analytics guy, not a big numbers guy, because numbers can be misleading. The tape is what is most important to me. Yes, I love athleticism. I like raw ability just as much as the next man, right? But the tape is what ultimately is going to determine if a guy is capable of playing at the next level, at a high level. And the traits that he has are just the cherry on top. For example, the first defensive player taken in this year's draft class was Latu. He wasn't taken first because he was the most dynamic or explosive. That award would go to Dallas Turner. He wasn't taken because he was the most physically imposing. That award would have gone to Jared Verse. He went because he was the most skilled, and the tape reflected that. It showed his ability to get to the quarterback. He wasn't the most athletically gifted edge rusher, but his tape said he can get to the quarterback better than any of these other guys in this draft, and that's why he was the first edge rusher selected in the 2024 NFL draft. And I'll take it a step further. He was the first defensive player taken in the 2024 NFL draft. So the tape is what's ultimately going to determine if a guy can get it done. As you get later and later, deeper and deeper into the draft, however, it becomes less about tape, because the reason you're still there, the reason that you're around in the 6th and the 7th round and have a chance to potentially go undrafted is that there's either not enough tape, the tape is uneven, or there's some questions about medical, there's some questions about off the field, but there's something wrong. And a lot of times it's the tape, whether it's not enough of it, it's not good enough. So you have to then go to the numbers. Athletically, where are you? Because if there's not enough tape, if I have questions about where you fit in the NFL, if I have questions about are you capable, all I want to know now is athletically, where are you? Because if you have enough athletic prowess, we can then work with you. We can try to see if we can get out of you the potential that you have based off of your athletic traits. The further you get into a draft, the more your athletic traits and prowess, not that it doesn't matter in the first round, right? He's a football player. He went 33rd overall, okay? Had Keon Coleman not been as good, people didn't view him in the light that they do, and you put those same measurements and those same numbers with a guy with less tape, with less production, with less high upside, you put those same numbers on a guy, that's a 6th, 7th round pick we're talking about, undrafted potentially. The more tape, the more production, the more we see against high-level competition, the more we're able to take that, extrapolate that to the NFL level and say, these are transferable traits. So with these guys, it is of the utmost importance that you have an athletic profile, that you are athletically gifted. This is what's going to get you a chance now. Your tape wasn't good enough to get you a chance in the NFL. That's what the league has said. The league unanimously spoke and said your tape wasn't good enough. Your measurables weren't good enough. But your athleticism might be your ticket to getting in the back door as an undrafted free agent that works his way onto an NFL roster and gets an opportunity, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So with that said, and you know what? There's another conversation that I want to have real quick before we get into this. I was talking to my guy, Derek B, and we have some really good conversations. Me and Derek B do. And he was upset about, and he wasn't the only one. I had at least 4 people hit me up about the Eagles signing Mekhi Becton to a $5.5 million deal, a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. He's going to be their swing tackle. He's not even starting in Philadelphia. Howie Roseman just wants to put themselves in a position that because every year Lane Johnson gets hurt. There hasn't been a year in the last 3 years Lane Johnson at some point hasn't gotten hurt. And when he gets hurt, it seems like the offense goes to shit or they're in some type of trouble when he does get banged up. So to alleviate that, they brought in Mekhi Becton. That gives them an opportunity if he develops. And they've got the best offensive line coach. I think they've got the best offensive line coach in the NFL, and Jeff Stoutland. They feel like if anybody can get the most out of Mekhi Becton and his talents, it's Jeff Stoutland. So we'll see what happens with Mekhi Becton, but a lot of people were upset. Why couldn't we do that? Why didn't we sign him? Well, clearly they didn't want him. That's what that meant. This is the thing. Like, you can't be upset about not signing Mekhi Becton when everybody had a shot at signing this guy prior to the draft, everyone took the same approach with Mekhi Becton, which means nobody loved Mekhi Becton. If they thought that he was good enough to work with, if they thought he was good enough to sign, he would have been signed prior to the draft. To hell with this deep draft class of tackles. You would have taken the flyer prior to the draft. Clearly, no one thought he was worthy of taking prior to the draft, but they knew he'd be available thereafter, right? So you go into the draft, they took Brandon Coleman, they feel good about that. They're moving on, right? They didn't want Mekhi Becton. But my question, Derek B was upset because he's like, you know what? They're going to put Jaden Daniels in the same peril that they put Sam Howell in last year. And I can't sit here and watch them do this to this young man, right? He's got all the talent in the world, all the upside, and they're going to ruin this kid because they don't have an offensive line, right? And my response to him was, have you ever considered this? That the offense that they're going to run this year is going to protect Jaden Daniels. Have you ever considered this? That Jaden Daniels' ability to run and the threat of him running is going to protect Jaden Daniels. Have you ever considered that running the ball more than 8 times a game is going to protect Jaden Daniels? We can run the football. In this offense with Cliff Kingsbury, they're going to run the football. Jaden Daniels is going to run the football. The threat. Remember Robert Griffin III's rookie season? Remember how defenses couldn't really rush after the quarterback? How he would sit back there on those drift routes and throw it over the middle of the field because they had to respect whether he was going to tuck it and run, if he was going to give it to Alfred Morris. That's going to be a lot of the same things. It's the same thing the Baltimore Ravens have with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, right? The threat of Lamar, it stifles the rushing of the edge rushers and the defensive line. It slows them down. It makes them think, hey, do I have to play Lamar's legs right here, or is he going to throw the football? All of that, and again, and Cliff Kingsbury's offense is predicated on the quick game, right? So the ball should be coming out very quickly. Mind you, he shouldn't be throwing the ball 37, 41, 44, 51, 57 times. There was a game last year where Sam Howell threw the ball 51 times in a row. That won't happen this year. Trust me. And I told Derek B, I said, you're suffering from something that a lot of us are suffering from last year. You've got PTSD from Ron Rivera and EB. They left you with PTSD. You can't put that on this staff. You can't put that on this group. I get it. You wanted to fix the offensive line more. Well, they did what they felt like they needed to do up front on the offensive line. I was very clear when I said you're not going to fix everything in year one. They've done all they could do. Could they have taken an offensive tackle? Sure. You don't know if Brandon Coleman's going to be good or not. You've all assumed that he's not good. You don't know if he's going to be good or not as a tackle. I watched more Brandon Coleman today indirectly because I was watching one of the defenders. Who was it? I was watching Tyler Owens was playing against TCU. And so I was like, well, shit, I'm here. I might as well watch Brandon Coleman too while I'm here. Every time I watch him, I'm more impressed. And that was the first time in 2023 I'd really, really seen him play tackle. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't as good as it was in 2022. But I also heard he was dealing with an injury this year. But to me, I'm going to give it a chance. So should you. Could they have done more on the offensive line? Maybe. But they did what they felt like they needed to do to put the offensive line in a position to field a team this year that can be successful. Is the offensive line a finished product? No, it is not. Far from it. And I guarantee you they will drill into that offensive line even more so next year. But for the time being, they've got enough stuff. They've got enough pieces. We don't even know where all of these pieces fit. We do know that we got a right guard and we have a center. We do know that. We do know that. We got a left guard position open. We got a left tackle position open. And right now, right tackle is open as well. And we'll figure out where they put all these pieces together and where they all fit. But they got a bunch of stuff to consider, including guys that were drafted last year that you have no clue, that I have no clue if they can play at this level or not. We have no clue. Our starting left guard might be Ricky Stromberg for all we know. We have no idea what's going to happen. None. So just sit back, allow the process to play itself out. We'll see what happens. And if it's a disaster, then you can point the finger at Adam Peters and Lance Newmark and say, hey, you guys did this. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to our first undrafted free agent or priority free agent, Sam Hartman. It's you could argue the most important one because it's a quarterback. And I just love it because not because he went to Notre Dame, could care less about that. I have intimate knowledge of him because I watched him play, and I had watched him at Wake Forest as well. So I already knew what his game was about, but I hated that offense at Wake Forest. I like that he played at Notre Dame last year. You got a better sense of who he is as a quarterback, and I got a good feel for what he is. But this is more important for me because I want Jake Fromm the hell out of here. I don't even want him on the roster when we go to camp. I want Jake Fromm gone, right? And this ensures that Jake Fromm's at least going to have some competition, right? Because he was one of those 4 quarterbacks that they talked about we were going to camp with. Well, we've got 5 currently if Sam Hartman is, going to camp right now. And I'd like to trim that number down to 4. And I'd like that guy that gets trimmed off to be Jake Fromm. He stinks. So Sam Hartman is better than Jake Fromm. So Sam Hartman, 6'1", 211 pounds. He's what we call a super senior. Okay. Guy's been in college for about 20 years. If I'm not mistaken, I think Sam Hartman's son is about to graduate high school. That's how long he's been in college. No, I'm kidding. He's been in college for a very long time. They showed a list of quarterbacks that came into college and left college before Sam Hartman left. And the list of starting NFL quarterbacks is robust, right? Guys that have played college football at the same time as Sam Hartman and are now in the NFL as starters. It's something like 8 or 9 quarterbacks. The list is long and it is crazy. And I think it was like Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. And I mean, we can go on and on. All the guys, Justin Herbert, all these guys played in college. I mean, Hartman started in 2018. So you could imagine every quarterback that's come out since 2018, the 2019 draft, essentially, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, they've all played in college with Sam Hartman, and he's still there. Guys actually came after him and left before him. It's amazing. But I'll just give you the skinny on Hartman really quickly. This is a guy that's a little undersized for the position, but, we've advanced at quarterback. People will still complain about size if the guy's super short, but, I mean, you can't get much shorter than Bryce Young and smaller than Bryce Young at the quarterback position, and he went number 1 overall. So at 6'1", he's fine. He showed athleticism at the combine when he ran and he jumped and he did all that stuff and he tested. Cool. But he's got a quick release. He can be very accurate when his feet are set and he's decisive and he sees what and he anticipates what he sees and gets rid of the football. He can be very accurate with the football. He does not have the strongest arm. And my biggest knock on him, watching him at Notre Dame, is that his decision making is sporadic, and he'll turn the football over. And he is not comfortable when he is knocked off platform, when his feet aren't set, when he has to move off of his spot and create off schedule. He is not comfortable. He can create off schedule. He can do the backyard football thing. He was really good at it at Wake Forest in particular. Every now and again, he'll get you. He'll bless you. But once he starts running around back there and he's trying to make a play, he's more likely to do something stupid as hell with the football. And there were times last year where I go, Sam, what was that, bro? Seriously, what was that? You can't do that, man. Damn. It's just too many instances of that with him, right? Where you just go, come on, bro. That's a bad turnover, man. And it'd be uncalled for. Very unnecessary. So he is a backup quarterback. Nothing more, nothing less. He could be a Gardner Minshew type. Like, that's who I kind of see him as a Gardner Minshew. He could come in here, got the long flowing hair, running around, making plays. You fall in love with him. He's a cool guy, all of that good stuff. But when it's all said and done, he's a backup quarterback, and we'll see if he can weasel his way into the league and stick around for a while. Washington's giving him an opportunity to come in here and compete for I think a practice squad spot. My guess is that they're going to keep 2 quarterbacks, maybe 3 on the roster, because the rule is if you keep a third quarterback essentially on your roster, he can be the emergency quarterback on game days and not count against the active, roster, right? So you got to keep that third guy. And again, we're in that transitional phase where we're going to have an extra spot for a third quarterback if they so choose to keep a guy active on game days. Which, when you've got 2 mobile quarterbacks like we do in Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota, you probably need to keep a third quarterback as an emergency guy. I think that probably more so would be a veteran, and a guy like Hartman would be on the practice squad, would be my guess, though. But, we'll see what they ultimately decide to do. But I like the addition of Hartman. He comes in here, he can learn, and he can compete for that practice squad spot that has been occupied by Jake Fromm. Really held hostage is the better usage of words there in term and phrase, is being held hostage by Jake Fromm. We're trying to set that position free now. And hopefully Sam Hartman can come in here and do that. But anyway, I digress. So let's get to the other guys, right? The other 10 players on this list of undrafted free agents. And this first guy, Chozi Anum, is very interesting. A lot of people seem to have fallen in love with him because of the raw athleticism, which we're going to take a look at now. But Chiggy, as they call him, Chozi Anum, is very interesting. Now, let's go through these numbers, and then I'll tell you what I saw on tape. So clearly, your ROS score, right, which is relative athletic score. You see this all the time. You hear people reference ROS scores all the time, right? It's not something that I generally get in too deep into. It's a good tool to use if we're comparing guys to one another and you want to see where they kind of fit in. I think this is a good tool to use when you're doing that. But you can't base if a guy can play or not off of his ROS score, right? That said, it's out of 10, a ROS score is. And this guy's is 8.88, all right, 8.88, which is pretty damn high. That's pretty damn good, right? So when you look at his height, he's 6'1", So you see how high that score is. That's a great height for a corner. He's 200 pounds. Again, you see in green. The testing, green is great. Yellow is okay. Red is poor. All right, that's the scale essentially. So 200 pounds, that's pretty damn good. As a matter of fact, that's going to be better than most corners that you're going to find coming into the league. You're not going to find many guys coming into the league at 200 pounds. Most of these dudes are 190, 195, 185, somewhere in that neighborhood. Bench 14 times, which is good. The vert was 37 and a half, 8.05. So that's a good score. Obviously, the broad was 10 foot, 4 inches. Solid, right? This is where everybody was going nuts, though. His speed, 4.39, great. Obviously, 20-yard split, so the short shuttle, 2.49 is ridiculous. That's one of the fastest short shuttles I've ever seen. Okay, that's a pretty damn good short shuttle, if I may say so. Or 20-yard split, excuse me. That's not the short shuttle. That's the 20-yard split. So that's where he's run 20 yards. That's the time that he's hit the 20-yard mark, essentially. Excuse me. I was about to say that's the fastest short shuttle time I've ever seen in my life, but that's not the short shuttle. That's 20-yard split. And as you can see, that's almost as high as you can get it. All right. It's almost at 10, 9.86. 10-yard split means he's not as explosive, and I'm going to get to that here in a second. It's a 1.57, which is okay, right? It's okay, which is indicated by the yellow. As you get to his composite agility grade, you go to the short shuttle, and this is where I talk about edge rushers in particular. Those are the two scores that you should care about if you're looking at an edge rusher. And this is why a lot of these guys don't do those drills anymore. Because if you show me your short shuttle and your 3-cone, and it's disappointing, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to be a dynamic pass rusher. Chase Young, I know for a fact, wasn't going to kill either one of those, okay? And I think we even got a little into his short shuttle, I think. But you can tell based off of, like, go look at the best pass rushers in the NFL, go look at their 3-cone and their short shuttle, and that'll tell you all you need to know. And it used to be where guys used to do that. Now that they know that's one of those criteria that people look at, a lot of the edge rushers don't do those drills anymore because they don't want, like, unless you're killing it and you're using it as a badge of honor, like, look at this shit. If there's any chance you could go out and struggle at, then there's no reason for you to do it. Don't let them have that information. But for a corner, these numbers are vital because of short area quickness. It shows your ability to stop, to start, change direction, which is important for a cornerback, right? Because a lot of your movements are going to be within a phone booth. Essentially, you're going to have to, in split second, make a decision on whether I'm going to plant and drive. Am I going to flip my hips? Am I going to turn? Am I going to have to come back to the football to try to make a play? Am I going to have to turn and run and sprint? Am I going to have to plant and drive and run across the field on a shallow cross? Like, these are the things you have to be able to do. And these drills kind of show you that. And as you can see, he's not very good in the short shuttle or the 3-cone. He's not quick in short areas, right? And the tape bears that out, right? So a lot of people are excited about him because of these numbers. Like, oh my God. And he is a guy that if you're going to play press coverage at that size with the arm length, with the weight and the speed, you're thinking, hey, this guy can do it. Well, there's a reason why he didn't get drafted. And a lot of times the tape is what ultimately, determines whether a guy gets selected or not. And for Chozi Anum, he is a guy that when you watch him on tape, guys run by him very often. And then he has to try and use that speed. And as I mentioned, he's a build-up speed guy. He's not explosive. He's not dynamic. He's not twitchy. And you can tell that in his movements. When he gets into his pedal and has to then turn and transition to sprint, it's slow. It's clunky. That transition is not fluid, and guys can get on top of him. Now, when he plays in that kind of half turn bail type of technique, he's actually pretty good in that regard. And that's when I think he's at his best. But if we're just talking man cover corner, I wouldn't trust this guy with that responsibility. I don't like his aggressiveness as a tackler. He's one of those dudes that would prefer not to get dirty. I watched 3 games of his because the first 2 were somewhat underwhelming. And, you know, look, he didn't get the football thrown his way. As a matter of fact, let's go over a few numbers. 5 seasons this man played at the cornerback position. Now, obviously, not all of them he was the starter. You know, not all of them he was getting the bulk of the reps. But for at least 3 seasons, he was probably the primary corner, especially these last 2 seasons in particular at Colorado State. He started out his career. Am I mixing up my guys? I think I'm mixing up my guys. Yeah, he was Colorado State. These last 2 years in particular. Let me make sure. Let me double check. I feel like this guy transferred from somewhere after starting out his career. And then Colorado State was the last 2 years of his career, and he was primarily the starter there. Feel like that's the case. I'm going to double check right now just to make sure. I don't want to give out any false information. Normally I put that kind of stuff in my notes though, and I didn't. So it makes me believe that he didn't play somewhere else. But yeah, California. He played at Cal for the first 3 years, and then the last 2 years he was at Colorado State. That's what I thought. I just didn't put it in my notes. I was tripping. So he had 5 seasons in college football. 2 of them primarily as a starter. His last season at Cal, he started to get a lot more reps. 18 pass breakups, 1 interception. You know how big I am on taking the ball away. If you play that much college football, 5 seasons, guys come in as a freshman and catch a tip ball for a pick. 3.5 tackles for loss, and he had 1 block kick in his career. Okay. I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't see it with him. I don't see NFL player. I don't see a guy that can contribute from an NFL standpoint. He may be able to contribute as a special teams player, but I don't even see the type of demeanor that is necessary for a special teams demon, right? Guys that play special teams have to welcome contact and physicality. There were games where I'm like, this dude doesn't want to get dirty. He doesn't even want to get on the ground, right? He is one of those guys that he wants to be around the action to make it look like he wants to get involved, but he really doesn't. Like, if a fight breaks out, and again, I don't know him. This is like my analogy of the situation. You remember the replacements? And Orlando, what is his name? Orlando Jones's character, the receiver. When the fight broke out, he was like under a table or something. Like he didn't want any smoke. Then they got thrown into jail, and he was talking all this shit, and the kicker was like, "You shut up, because you was hiding when we was fighting," right? That's how I see, Chozi Anum as like one of those dudes that he'll act like he's rowdy, and he bout it. But when the shit actually goes down, he wants to be close enough that you see him and you say, hey, he was there. He was holding us down, but he really ain't trying to put hands on nobody. So I don't love his mindset, his demeanor. I don't love his physicality or lack thereof. He'll come up and tackle when he has to, like absolutely has to. He'll come up and hit you. Like he's not going to run from contact. But if he can avoid it, he will. All right. If he can stay on his feet, if he doesn't have to get on the ground, he doesn't have to get dirty, he'll stay on his feet and try to get you down on the ground. And I don't love his coverage ability. There's a reason why he wasn't drafted. From a raw athleticism standpoint, he's got everything you're looking for. But when you look at his coverage, when you look at the tape, I see a guy that will have trouble staying with NFL receivers. And I see a guy that's going to struggle to keep guys in front of him because he doesn't have the short area quickness to deter quarterbacks from targeting him underneath. And then as guys run by him, he's a build-up speed guy. So he's got to be running for 10, 15 yards. As you can see, the first 10 yards are not fast, okay? He doesn't start to build up that speed until he gets to around 15, 20 yards, and then he starts to really hit fifth gear. By that time, though, he's cooked. He's beat. So I'll tell you right now, I don't see him taking anybody's job currently on the roster. I don't see him, taking anybody's job. Could this guy be coached up? Because, again, this is what it's all about. Getting a guy with the athletic traits that give you something to work with. I could see him being on the practice squad. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I can't see him taking right now. I can't see him taking Christian Holmes's job on special teams. Because that's what it's going to ultimately come down to. If you can't help me as a defender at the cornerback position right now, then you better be able to help me on special teams. I don't see him beating out a guy like Christian Holmes, who's a fiend on special teams. Right? I don't see him beating out the back end of the roster guys right now who are dying to run down there and cover on special teams. Now, again, when you tell a guy his NFL life is on the line, maybe there's a different side of Chiggy that I haven't seen. That he'll all of a sudden say, hey, I'll do what I got to do to stay in the league. I didn't see that on tape. And it's different when you're in college because when you're in college, you probably don't have to play special teams. When you're the star corner, you're not playing special teams. Somebody else is doing that. A little different when you get to the NFL and now you're at the bottom of the totem pole and you're fighting for your life. We'll see what he's all about. But I'll just tell you, I don't see this guy making an impact. But from an athletic standpoint, if he receives proper coaching and he's able to maybe transform, parts of his game to be a little bit better, who knows? There could be a future for him down the road. But right now, nah. So, and keep in mind, as I go through this, if you're looking for a cheerleader, you're looking for someone to champion these guys because, oh my God, they're undrafted. Look out. Wrong video. You got to go somewhere else for that. I'm going to give you the reels. I'm going to give you the raw, uncut, no chaser, right? So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. You're looking for a cheerleader, wrong video. Come back next time. So now we move on to the next guy. Austin Jones, running back out of USC. Started out his career at Stanford. 5'9", 200 pounds. As you can see, 5'9 and a half. 5095. So that's 5'9 and a half. 200 pounds. Ran a 4.57 40. And let's just go through his numbers real quick. Started out his career at Stanford, finished up his career at SC. So as you can see, athletically, he struggles. The raw score is not good. All right. It's average at best, but when you watch him, there's nothing to his game that is dynamic. All right. Just a few numbers to throw out at you. In his career, 498 carries for 2,337 yards and 24 touchdowns. Okay. Of the 24 touchdowns that he scored, only 3 of them came from further than 12 yards out. So that speaks to his lack of burst and explosion, the inability to make people miss, and the inability to hit home runs. Hell, this dude doesn't even hit triples. The best he's going to do is hit a double. And he's going to have to leg that out and slide head first and maybe even have a creative slide at the bag so that he's not tagged out. He caught 105 balls for 901 yards and 3 touchdowns in his career. But when you look at his tape and you watch him, nothing stands out. He's as average and nondescript a running back as you will find. So these numbers kind of bear that out. We'll go through them quickly. You start with his height, 5'9.5". That, I mean, this is going to say it's poor. Nobody cares about the height of a running back. 200 pounds. You want your running back to be 215, but 200 pounds. You better be fast if you're going to be 200 pounds, and he's not. So that's not good. His explosion grade, 36.5-inch vert, pretty solid. As you can see, it's green, 8.19 out of 10. Broad jump, 10-foot broad. Okay, right? And this is where you see the struggles in his game kind of translate to the field, his athleticism or lack thereof. 4.57 40-yard dash, which is, for a guy that's 5'9", 200 pounds, that's not good. And you know what I'm looking at? You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for a speed demon. That's what I'm looking for. Like, if you can't offer me something better than Chris Rodriguez Jr., I'm just stick with Chris Rodriguez Jr. Like, you got to give me something better. It's got to be an upgrade, or I'm going to just stick with the kid, right? Like, what are we talking about? So clearly all of this is okay. 20-yard split, 2.66. 10-yard split, 1.61. All of it is okay. To me, all of that is, below average, to be honest with you. But okay, it's all okay. Composite agility grade is his short shuttle is 4.39. Not good. Okay, not good at all. Which you can see the score indicates pretty poor number, 3.39. And his 3-cone is 7.02, which is a 7.12, which is okay. That's solid. Almost a sub 7. But when you watch his game, these numbers are kind of true to form. He doesn't have any wiggle. He's not going to make anybody miss. If you block a play for 3 yards, Austin Jones is getting 3 yards. If you block a play for 8 yards, Austin Jones is getting 8 yards. He might fall forward for a 9th or 10th yard because he's got this little spin at the end when he gets hit. But it's not a spin to keep his balance and continue to run. It's a spin to avoid full contact, but I'm going down. Okay. I'm going to fall forward with this spin, but I'm not going to, stay on my feet and pick up an additional 9, 10, 11, 12 yards. Right. He's as basic as they come, which is why he wasn't drafted. He can catch it out of the backfield a little bit, but you can find guys that can catch the ball out of the backfield that offer you some kind of dynamic ability. Give me something. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there as a pass protector, but that's not great. And being undersized doesn't help you as a pass protector, but he's willing, right? He's not afraid to get in the fray. But Austin Jones doesn't offer you anything that you don't get from Chris Rodriguez, who's bigger, more physical. And I guess, I don't remember what Rodriguez run. I can look it up right now. I think Rodriguez might be in that same neighborhood, maybe a little slower. See, Chris Rodriguez, 40 time. And he's faster, 4.52. Chris Rodriguez ran a 4.52 at 217 pounds. So to me, I wouldn't take him over Chris Rodriguez Jr. There's just not enough here. He's a standard run-of-the-mill college football running back that doesn't translate to the NFL game. And he'll come in, he'll compete, and it'll be cool. And who knows, he may even make it to the preseason. He'll be getting some of those, late game carries, and he might make a couple of runs. You go, hey, he's not that bad. Don't allow yourself to be sucked in. He's a basic back. I don't even think he's worthy of the practice squad personally. So I'll roll with the 3 dudes that we already have, and we even signed McNichols, and McNichols is better than him too. So. Yeah, Austin Jones doesn't bring anything to the table. So he's one of those dudes that you go, hey, man, I'm glad you got an opportunity, but it ain't going to be here, bro. I'm just telling you. Let's move on to Ben Nickel, safety out of Iowa State. This dude has a shot. Why does he have a shot? Because he's a fiend. And as we all know, there's a place in the league for special teams fiends. Okay. Now, who would he be knocking off the roster, you ask? Hey, man, we got a beloved guy here that we think is untouchable. And I've said this already when I talk about, turning this program around and who are the guys that need to be here when it turns around. Jeremy Reeves is one of those dudes. But if you're looking at whose job he would be coming in here to take, it'd be Jeremy Reeves. Now, I don't think that's what's going to happen. Okay, Jeremy Reeves is an all-pro. And if he comes back from his injury healthy, the same that he was before the injury, I don't think he has anything to worry about. But we're talking about a core. Like, this dude really didn't play defense in college. He was a walk-on at Iowa State, earned a scholarship, played special teams, and made it his business to be one of the best special teams players in all of college football. And got a little bit of defensive snaps towards the end of his career, but this guy is made for special teams. It's what he does. And so when you look at his profile, let's go through it right now. 6 foot, 199 pounds. So none of that jumps out off the page. None of that really matters, okay? None of that matters if you're a demon as a special teams defender and you tackle. None of that shit matters. When he benches, nobody cares. If he's getting dudes down before they reach the 25-yard line on a kickoff, who gives a shit? If he's running down there and he's batting the ball back at the 2-yard line and somebody's down in there at the 2, nobody gives a shit that he only benched 225 15 times, right? None of that shit matters. This is the stuff that matters, and all of this shit is green, okay? He tackles at a high clip, okay? And everything else is green. And that's the shit you should be concerned about. Vertical, almost 40 inches, 39 and a half. As I mentioned, all of these numbers are out of 10. It's a 9.58, okay? His composite explosion grade is elite. So is his composite speed grade. So is his composite agility grade, okay? So these are all the makings of a guy that could be the Slater guy from the Patriots who may ultimately make the Hall of Fame. He just retired this year. Not saying that that's who he is. I'm just saying. So the vert, 39 and a half. The broad is 11 foot, 4 inches. Yikes. The 40-yard dash, 4.45. So he can run. The 20-yard split, 2.56. So he can run. And the 10-yard split is 1.5. So he can run at all levels. So that means his first 4 steps, he's at top speed, right? He's already there. Unlike Chiggy, who it takes him a runway, it takes him to about 15 to 20 yards to get up to maximum speed. Ben Nickel can run, okay? And it doesn't take him long to run. And then his agility grades, ridiculous. 4.1 on the short shuttle, which is dumb, as you can see. And his 3-cone, 6.82. That's elite edge rusher 3-cone numbers, okay? That's next level shit. That's J.J. Watt type of agility, right? Where you're turning the corner and you flatten into the quarterback. He's got all of that. And you need all of that when you're on special teams. Because you got to get around guys. You got to flatten. You got to try to get to a guy. A guy might block you or contact you at the 27. You got to discard him, flatten, turn the corner, and get to a guy before he breaks the seam, right? Before he hits that seam and takes off and now you can't catch him. You got to make it there before he makes it there. This dude was an elite college football special teams player, and he has a chance to be the same thing at the NFL level. I'm not telling you that Jeremy Reeves is in trouble. I'm just telling you that Jeremy Reeves could be in some trouble. Now, again, they brought Reeves back. They know his track record, and there's space on the roster for more than one fiend, but you got to remember, we're loaded at safety, bro. Like, they're not getting rid of Percival Butler for Ben Nickel. Okay, they're not getting rid of they're not getting rid of Defoe for Ben Nickel. They're damn sure not getting rid of Quan Martin for Ben Nickel, right? So, you know, we got nickels for days. They brought in Jeremy Chin. We got safeties for days. So he'd have to take Jeremy Reeves' spot is what he'd have to do to make this team. What he offers us, though, and this is what I feel really good about. He offers us a Jeremy, like there was a significant drop-off last year when Jeremy Reeves got injured. Now, we didn't give up any touchdowns on special teams, but we gave up some big plays on special teams. And our special teams was somewhat lackadaisical without Jeremy Reeves on that unit. Having a Ben Nickel on your practice squad, which is where I think he ultimately ends up, offers you a replacement for Reeves should something happen to him, like it did last year. Look at him as a Troy Apke type, a guy that you never expect to see the field in any capacity defensively, but you know he can play him some special teams, okay? Look at Ben Nickel in that regard. So I think he's got a shot. Don't rule out Ben Nickel. I'll just tell you that. Don't rule out Ben Nickel. Next guy up. We're going to call him David N. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. So let's get into David a little bit. David is 6'4", 293 pounds. Right there, starting off, we have a problem on our hands. A significant problem. David's arms are 33 and 5/8 inches. So that's not terrible, right? But the weight is a problem. Right off the bat, right out of the gate. He's a super senior, okay? Similar to what we talked about with quarterback Sam Hartman, he's a super senior. Came to college football back in 2018, spent his first 3 college seasons at Temple, 2018 through 2020. He played in 4 games in those 3 years, just 4 games. Started 2 of them, okay? He then moves on to Rutgers for 2 years, 2021 and 2022. He plays in 8 games in that 2-year span, no starts. No starts. Then he goes to Toledo for his final year of his collegiate career. 6 years of college football, we're talking here. And it's the only season that he was the starter. Started all 14 games for Toledo, the Toledo Rockets. And I'm going to tell you right now, so we're clear, he is not a savior. Do not look at him as such. Okay. He is not here to save us. He is not here to bail us out. Look at him as Braden Daniels from last year. Braden came in here at 6'5", 296. And we were like, what the hell are we supposed to do with that? I can't get jiggy with that shit. What am I supposed to do with that? We're going to see if he can play. The tape that I watched, he was solid. Again, nothing jumped out at me. I didn't walk away saying, hey, man, a lot of workable traits here. Gotta have this guy on the practice squad so we can, work with him. He can put on some weight. We got something here. I didn't say that. I didn't see that. Not a man mover. Solid athleticism, but, wasn't a guy that I was excited about in space. Physically, he stood up most of the time, but he could be bull rushed. Didn't happen a ton, but I saw it happen. Ducked his head sometimes into contact. So guys that duck their head are easy to beat around the corner because you don't see what you're striking. When you duck your head, you lose sight of the target. Now, a simple slap of the hands, boop, you're already going down anyway. And then I'm just going to make you go down even further, and I'm just turn the corner on your ass. Let's go through his numbers real quick. Obviously, they're not impressive. You see the raw score is less than a 5. So Nothing here screams, help is on the way. I'm only yelling, help! Get this man some help. So his composite size grade, very poor. Again, 6'5.5", not good. 293, terrible. Okay, terrible. And the 20 on the bench, not great, but whatever. His composite explosion grade is actually elite. 32.5 inches on the vert, a 9-foot 2-inch broad. Those are really respectable numbers. But it doesn't translate to speed necessarily. 5.22 isn't anything to scoff at, but when you're sub 300 pounds, man, you better be Roger Rosengarten, okay? You better be running at 4.98. You're going to be sub 300 pounds. The 20-yard split, 2.99, not bad. And the 10-yard split, 1.81. That's not good. You know, Daniel Jeremiah gave us the number, I think, for the offensive line. It was like 1.71 or 1.7 flat for the guys that were elite in the league. Clearly, he is not. But 1.81, it doesn't register, right? Then you get to the composite agility grade, and it's poor. The short shuttle, the 3-cone, both nasty. And again, I didn't see any real athleticism on the field. I didn't see a guy that was overly strong or aggressive. Nothing. And again, we're talking about a guy with $16 career starts over 6 college football seasons, 16 career starts. So, I mean, what did you really think you were getting here, right? Not much. Not much, you know. So, again, this isn't a guy that I expect to make a dent. We got guys that, you know, have been here for 2-3 years that are way more advanced than David. And I can't even see David cracking the practice squad here. I don't think he's even a guy that you say, hey, I really want to work some more with David. I don't see that here. I take my chances with Braden Daniels. Thank you very much. As we move on, this is one of the favorites. I had somebody on the last stream or 2 streams ago say, hey, man, you got to look up Tyler Owens. I even wrote his name down. And he was like, man, you got to check this dude out. I was like, if we signed him as a undrafted free agent, I'll check him out. True to my word, I did. So let's talk about Tyler Owens because there's a lot here to digest and unpack. So 6'2", 216 pounds, senior out of Texas Tech, started off his career at the University of Texas. This dude came in with a lot of fanfare. When you get recruited in the state of Texas to go to the University of Texas, you're an athlete. You know, you're a guy that is highly regarded. Stayed at Texas for 3 years, 2019 through 2021. 26 games total, only 1 start while he was there. He then transfers over to Texas Tech and spends the remaining 2 years of his collegiate career there. He participated in 22 games. And of those 22 games, 11 of them were starts. 2 of them in 2022, the other 9 in 2023. So he played the most football at the collegiate level in his final year of college, which is a good thing, right? So you look at all of his numbers, 1.5 tackles for loss in his career, 2 forced fumbles, 5 pass breakups, 1 interception, and 2 blocked kicks. So the 2 blocked kicks stand out for me because that means this guy can be a problem on special teams. And as a matter of fact, as we go through this exercise, I think I'm going to take out my highlighter. And I want to highlight the guys that I think actually have a chance to crack this roster or at least make the practice squad. So I'm going to take out my highlighter. And I've already told you that Ben Nickel has a shot. I wouldn't rule out Chozi Anum, even though I don't love him, but I'll highlight him because he's got some traits. Tyler Owens is another guy that I'm going to highlight, but we got to have a conversation about him before you get carried away. So, first of all, he's one of those guys that's a little out there. So this has nothing to do with football, but he's one of those flat earthers. You know, one of those guys that doesn't believe in space and all of that shit. So he's a little out there in terms of the way that he thinks about things. I don't care about that. Can you play ball? That's what I care about. Okay. People will kind of dig into that. He believes in aliens, and how do you not believe in space, but you believe in other beings and, things of that nature. Anyway, I again, there are other guys that, what I've found interesting is a lot of these flat earthers, guys that kind of believe, these guys seem to be the most athletic guys a lot of times. Not that has anything to do with anything, but they get blessed with some athletic traits that the rest of us don't. I don't know. Anyway, that has nothing to do with nothing. So 6'2", 216 is Tyler Owens. And as you can see, his composite size grade is, I was thinking about Kyrie Irving, JLG. That's why I said that. Yeah, and he's not alone, right? There's some others, I think Steph Curry's kind of in that same lane too. I mean, he's not going to come out. He's got too much to lose if he starts talking crazy, but I've heard him mention the earth being flat before. Like, I'm just telling you, it's some dudes out there that think a little different, and they get blessed, I guess, in order to think that way. I think there is something to be said about thinking that way. I'm not that it's not right. I don't think it's right, but doesn't matter. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. So his composite size grade is off the charts. Yeah, everything, checks out. 215, 6'2", 215, 216. It's the same thing I talked about with Dominique Hampton, who we drafted in the 7th round, right? Or 5th round, excuse me. All of that checked out for him. The size, the weight, or the height, the weight, the athleticism, everything that Tyler Owens is, Dominique Hampton is, except Dominique Hampton can actually play football and has played football. Okay. Owens has not, and you can tell. Okay. The composite explosion grade is elite, right? I've never seen, now, granted, I haven't been looking at raw scores for years. I've only started looking at these over the last maybe 2 years or so. I don't think I've ever seen a 10, though. I have not. And, there's other guys that have jumped some ridiculous verts and broads and probably have hit a 10 before, but that's eye-popping, right? The 41-inch vert, the 12-foot, 2-inch broad, ridiculous. So they don't have his 40-yard dash because he was at the combine and he went to run his first 40 and he pulled up lame about 10 yards in. And he tweaked his groin and he could not continue. And I honestly believe that is why he did not get drafted. People know he's fast. People know he can run. They've seen the explosiveness in the vert and the broad. And you do those things before you run your 40. And, you can watch the tape and tell that he's got some explosion to him. But in order for people to know, to truly know, they need to see it. They need a number. They need to be able to put a number. If he would have gone out, and his goal at the combine was to run a sub 4.3, I think he was going to do it. His last known 40, and this is what I'm rolling with, was a 4.3 flat. So it would have been nothing for him to show up at the combine and run a 4.27. he would have gotten drafted had he run the 4.27, I believe. But because he wasn't able to run the 40, to put the agility to the test, to run the 3-cone, to run the short shuttle, teams couldn't put an active number on him. And I think the tape wasn't good enough. The tape wasn't good enough to withstand no 40. So let's get into him as a player, because obviously the athletic profile is ridiculous and it's off the charts. So I wanted to dig into him pretty good, because usually guys like him get drafted at the end of the draft. Normally guys with this kind of an athletic profile, that size, 6'2", 215, that runs, I mean, the numbers tell you he's going to run in the 4.3 somewhere, if not sub 4.3. Guys with that kind of athletic profile, generally, somebody's going to take a flyer on him. But the tape is so bad that without the actual tangible numbers, you just say, nah, I'm good. I'll take them after the draft. They're actual good football players I can spend a pick on. So here's the first thing that you notice with him. You know what I liken him to? You know what I liken Tyler Owens to? When you watch him on tape, he looks like a redshirt sophomore or a redshirt freshman that is getting his first opportunity to play. Been in the program for a year or two, has seen it, knows the defense now, but he's still tentative. He still doesn't know, the ins and the outs. He's still learning how to adjust to things that he's seeing in front of him because he just hasn't played enough ball, right? You don't expect that from a guy that's been in college football for 5 years. But that's where Tyler Owens is, because when you look at his profile, he had 1 start in 26 games during his time in Texas. Then he transfers to Texas Tech, and he only started in 11 games. So essentially what I'm telling you is he's got 1 season worth of starts under his belt. He looks like a redshirt sophomore. And that's hard to stomach when you're talking about a guy that's probably 24 years old, who's been in college football for 5 years. It's hard to stomach and process that this guy looks that behind the 8 ball. I'll give you some examples. I have PTSD first and foremost with guys that take poor angles. That bothers me, because I watched, after Defoe got hurt last year, I watched safety after safety take bad angles, especially Percival Butler. And he turned 16-yard runs into 54-yard touchdown. We were letting guys like Ramondre Stevenson get off on us and have career-high runs for touchdowns. Shit that's not supposed to happen, okay? If Kenneth Walker III gets off on you for a 52-yard run for a touchdown, okay, it's Kenneth Walker. I get it. He's dynamic. Ramondre Stevenson ain't supposed to be blazing you for a career-high 62-yard run for a touchdown. But that's what happens when you take a stinking-ass angle and allow him to get up the sideline and score a touchdown. Tyler Owens is taking those types of angles. Boy, are they nasty. Like, there's a play. I watched him in 2 games, Oregon and TCU. So I'm watching him against Oregon. And there's a run to the left side, and the running back bounces it outside and goes up the sideline. And Tyler Owens is playing free safety, and his first steps should have been straight towards the sideline, right? At a slight angle coming downward, but more towards the sidelines. His first 3 steps were straight towards the line of scrimmage, not towards the sidelines. And what that says to me is you're not processing what a good angle is, because you're going where the man is and not where he's going. And sure enough, his first 3 steps were towards the line of scrimmage. Then he veers outward, and that guy went right around his ass, right past him. Phew. He's fast enough, all right? He had enough space to where his cone, all right, we call it a tackle cone, his cone, right, should have been wide enough that he could have made that tackle, pushed that guy out of bounds, no problems, right? But because he takes a poor angle, first 3 steps towards the line of scrimmage, and then tries to veer out, that guy went right by him. If not for the safety from the other side of the field, who was actually down in the box, who took a good angle and ran all the way, if not for that guy, it's a touchdown. And I go, damn. Chitlin circuit. I'm watching him in coverage, and it was hard to watch. Now, there was one play. I'm going to talk about that play a little bit later. I'll save the best for last. But he stands flat-footed in coverage every single time. Okay? So if you're running an out, an in, a stop, a comeback, he's all over it because he's flat-footed. It's almost as if he's like, I dare you to run by me. But guys are running by you, bro. Like, you can't be flat-footed when a guy is threatening your cushion, right? When a guy is approaching your toes to step on them, you have to then respond, either by opening up or moving your feet. But you can't be standing still flat-footed and expecting that guy to not run by you. He's already running at full speed, by the way. So you haven't even revved up the engine. He's already at gear 5. What do you think is going to happen? So I saw that at least 3 times. 2 times he guessed right. 3 times the guy blew right by him. 1 time he should have been flagged for pass interference because he literally grabbed the dude so that he could keep up with him. The other 2 times he got blown by, and if the quarterback had time, 1 time he had pressure, the other time he was working the other side of the field. Had Bo Nix had time, there was a touchdown every time. A touchdown every time. Then there was one play, though. There was one play where I went, hey, how about that? He's in the slot, playing over the slot receiver, little small, shifty, fast guy who runs a slot fade on him. And this time, Tyler Owens correctly opens up, right? Doesn't wait for the guy to step on his toes and run by him before he opens it. He opens up, turns and runs with him. And I said, you big son of a bitch. Look at you run 40 yards down the field, step for step with this small, fast-ass receiver. Looks back for the ball, pushes him out of bounds. Perfect play on the ball. I said, well, goddamn. We got something here. If we could bottle that shit up and repeat that cycle, right? Wash, rinse, repeat that action right there. We got something. This dude is explosive and athletic as all get out. He's not afraid to come and hit you. Clearly, he can play special teams. But he's got a lot to learn. He's so raw, it's not even funny. Okay? Because he's too old to be this raw. Shit is kind of funny, actually, but it's not. That one play alone, and then I saw him with some really good coverage against TCU. Some really good coverage against TCU. A lot of it, though, was him standing flat-footed, guys running outs, and he would be all over it because he was already there, right? Coaching is going to be the key for Tyler Owens. If he takes the coaching with his athletic profile, he can run, man. He played in the East-West Shrine game, and he was clocked at almost 22 miles an hour in that game at one point. He can run. Nobody's doubting that. I'm still shocked, even though there's no time. I'm shocked no one just took a flyer on this kid. But when you watch the tape, I'm not shocked because it was bad. It was bad. So I get it. I know why no one took him. He doesn't have a lot of experience, and it's going to take a lot of coaching to get him. But this is what you can do with a guy like Tyler Owens. You can get this guy on special teams and let him contribute there while you're coaching him up defensively and seeing if there's anything you can tap into. And maybe he'll be a career special teamer. But if there's anything you can get out of him defensively, you coach him up. And I already told you why they drafted Dominique Hampton. It's the same reason they're bringing in Tyler Owens. if next year Jeremy Chin hits free agency and leaves, Dominique Hampton is going to slide into his role. And then they'll need a guy to fill Dominique Hampton's current role, which is backing up the guy that's going to play that big nickel for Washington. And it'll be Tyler Owens potentially. He's a candidate to be stashed away on the practice squad. I don't think he can help you on offense or on defense. And even though special teams wise, he may be able to help, there's not a roster spot for him. There's not an active day roster spot for him. But I think there's a practice squad spot with his name on it. He's a guy that I think has a shot to be on the practice squad. So now we move on to Norel Pard out of Virginia Tech. And this is a guy that I think has a chance to be on the practice squad. I think what's ultimately going to be his undoing, he's just not big enough. I watched a couple games of his, and I saw a spin move. I got excited, and that spin led to a sack. Now, it was a cleanup sack, but he won immediately with the spin. I said, oh, shit, Norel. You got a spin in your bag? He was like, yeah, I got a spin in the bag, bro. I was like, all right, we might have something here. Let's get to his numbers. 6 feet, 281, senior out of Virginia Tech. 22 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, including 1 scoop and score for a touchdown, 3 pass breakups in his career. So very active defender up front. And the quickness is indicated by the number of tackle for losses and sacks throughout his career. He's just undersized, man. Let's go through his numbers real quick. So he's, as I mentioned, he's 6 feet, 283 pounds, somewhere in that 281, 283, somewhere in that range. It's still too small, right? The bench 29 times. Again, that's fine. I think that's a solid number. 29 reps on the bench. You can see the composite explosion grade, and you see that on tape, right? Because I told you he can get off the ball quick. 33.5-inch vert, so that's a 950. And a broad of 9 feet 5 inches, 9.17. Both of those are elite for his size. The composite speed grade is elite. 4.8340. Again, for a man that's 283 pounds, that's phenomenal. The 9.74 bears that out. 20-yard split, 2.88. Again, that's really good for a man his size. A 10-second split. The 10-second split for the defensive tackles was somewhere in the 1.72 range, if I'm not mistaken. 1.72. He ran a 1.68 10-second split, so that's 9.48. That's an elite number. So again, the explosion, the speed, that's all there. The agility, solid. Didn't do a short shuttle, but the 3-cone 7.69, again, for his size, it's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. The biggest issue with him is at the point of attack. When he was playing, I watched him against ODU and I watched him against Florida State. And the reason why I did that is I wanted to see him against an offensive line that he would be able to handle against Old Dominion, because they weren't going to be as big or physical, right? My alma mater. And I wanted to see him against NFL-type dudes, against Florida State. And there was a stark difference between the two. Against ODU, he's getting into the backfield. He's disrupting. He's blowing up plays, tackle for loss. He's a handful, right? Then when he started playing against the big boys, against, Florida State, now he's getting manhandled in the run game. Now he's getting uprooted out of the B gap, tossed aside. Now he's getting moved out of the A gap. I love his hustle. I love his quickness off the snap. I told you there was a spin move that ultimately led to a sack. There's some workable traits, but at 283 pounds. Now, I will say this. Dan Quinn loves undersized defensive linemen. It's what he did in Dallas. It's part of the reason they were so disruptive up front, because they had undersized guys that could get to the quarterback on third downs, right? Which is why a guy like Dorrance Armstrong would be kicked inside and would play the 3-tech and rush from the 3-tech. And so I'm not telling you that Norel Pollard doesn't have a chance. I'm just telling you it's a long shot. It's a long shot. But keep this in mind. After the first 3 defensive tackles that we have, we don't have another guy that can actually rush after the quarterback. Both John Ridgeway and Fidarius Mathis are more run-stuffing, big, physical, space-eating defensive tackles, right? Mathis is, plus 310. I think Ridgeway might be close to 320. Those guys aren't pass rushers. Quinn likes them nimble, agile, hostile, and a lot of times undersized. Norel Pollard is probably a better fit for Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s scheme than Ridgeway and Fidarius Mathis are. But part of the problem in Dallas, when they couldn't stop the run, is because they didn't have enough beef and girth inside. Pause. So I don't know if you trade that for a guy like Norel Pollard, but I'll tell you this much. It wouldn't shock me if he was on the practice squad and he threatened to make the football team. Because, again, those 2 guys I just mentioned aren't safe, right? You would think naturally one of them is already going to be replaced by Johnny Newton. You would think that we're only going to carry 4 defensive tackles, no more than that. You would think that would be the case. Now, we'll see, right? We'll see what they ultimately decide to do, because you can get up to 10 on the defensive line if you want. And with the way our roster is going to be set up, because we have so much flexibility roster-wise, because we don't have a bunch of guys that are must on this roster. You have to keep this guy. We're not at that stage yet. You could keep however many you like. You can keep 5 defensive tackles and 5 edge rushers and go with 10 that way. You can go with 6 edge rushers and 4 defensive tackles. You can do whatever you want to do. You keep 9. The prevailing thought is it's going to be at least 9. 5 at one of those 2 and 4 at the other, right? Could be 8, 4 and 4. I doubt it. But I wouldn't discount him, being on the practice squad and eventually ending up on this roster and give him a year and he might get to 292 next year and keep his quickness and his athleticism. I wouldn't doubt that he's on this roster next year. I like what I saw. I'm going to highlight him, as a matter of fact. I like him. And he's just undersized. He's just undersized. That's his biggest issue. So, moving right along to Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, wide receiver from Georgia. It's all bad. I know you see the numbers. I know you see the colors. Not a lick of green up here. Everything about St. Jack is all bad. I don't know why I keep calling him St. Jack, because it sounds better than Jack Saint. Sounds like it's backwards, like it's supposed to be St. Jack, but it's Jack Saint. And I'm telling you, this dude's chances of making this team ain't jack shit. But we'll discuss anyway. So, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, 6'1", 195, senior wide receiver out of Georgia, 33-inch arms. That's a good thing, the 33-inch arms. Guy never had a 100-yard game in his collegiate career, not a single one. In 4 years, never had a 100-yard game. Now, to be fair, there was a 4-catch, 99-yard game against Kentucky, and that happened to be the game that I watched. I wanted to see him at his best, okay? 74 catches, for 1,028 yards and 7 touchdowns in his collegiate career. That's a season for most college football receivers that are any good. This man ran a 4.81 40. Let me get a 30 second. Let me get a 30 second timeout. He might be slower than almost every single player on Georgia's offense, including the offensive linemen. There are years where Georgia's offensive linemen are faster than 4.81. That's a tough one for me to accept. 6'1", 195, 11 on the bench, 35-inch vert, 9 foot 11-inch broad. So essentially a 10-foot broad. 4.81 40. What in the holy hell is that? And I was like, man, it can't be that bad. Let me readjust my headset. It can't be that bad. Let me go watch. I bet you he looked like he played faster. No, he does not. Okay. I watched the slowest deep over route against Kentucky he scored a touchdown on. It had to be the slowest over route I think I've ever seen in my life. He was running as fast as he could through that zone. Whoo! He looked like he had a fridge on his back. I asked him, I point blank, I said, bro, did you used to be fat? Did you used to be 260 and you got down to 195? Did you used to be big or something? Did I miss something? How in the hell are you 4.8 40, bro? It's tight ends that's 270 that's running sub 4.8. That's rough. I'm almost asked, why is he here? Why is he here? Give me Mitchell Tinsley, right? Why is he even here, bro? It ain't like he's 6'3", 215, and we go like, well, he's big, he's physical, right? We can throw it up to him. The man is 6'1", 195. What am I supposed to do with this shit? I can't get jiggy with this shit. What am I supposed to do with this? I don't even need to go through all of the composite speed and agility grade because it's just all bad. It's all bad. And the tape's not much better. There's no separation here. Every NFL corner is in this man's back pocket, daring this man to do anything. If I'm a corner, I'm sleep on this man. Absolutely sleep. Because even if he runs by me, I can catch up to him. Where he going? I used to play this game back in the day called NFL 95 on the Sega Genesis. And you could tap the button and they would do these taunts and they would say different things, right? If you hit the quarterback, you could hit the button and it would go, call the ambulance, right? Or it'd be like, pow, I got you, right? Or you could yoke somebody up and it'd be like, where you going? And I would tap the joint a bunch of times in a row and be like, where you going? That's how I feel about Rosemy-Jacksaint. Where you going, bro? I can spot you a 5-yard cushion down the field. I'm going to hawk you, bro. Where you going? Nowhere. My question is, why is he here? This was the best you could do at receiver? You couldn't find another guy that didn't get drafted that you say, hey, we want to take a flyer on this guy. Yeah, I know he played at Georgia in the SEC. That counts for something. You passing on Mitchell Tinsley for this dude? Not me. Not I. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this shit ain't happening. There's a lot of things that could happen. This ain't it, though. This ain't it. This ain't it. Let's move on to the next guy. Michael Wylie, running back out of Arizona. Now, this guy, I do like. Now, we're going to talk about him here and what he brings to the table. But there are a lot of qualities that I like with Michael Wylie. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, do you like him more than you like Chris Rodriguez Jr.? Things that make you go, So, Michael Wylie, 5'10", 210, senior running back out of Arizona. Ran a 4.51 40. 336 carries for 1,712 yards and 16 touchdowns in his career. Rushing. Receiving 123 catches for 1,150 yards and 12 touchdowns. So that's some good production for a guy that was a rotational back his entire career, was never the lead dog. And had some guys that in front of him that played well and actually got drafted into the NFL. The Giants took one of the Arizona backs like 2 years ago. So the number that's most impressive is this dude finds the end zone. 28 touchdowns over the life of his career as a rotational guy. Pretty damn impressive. If you want to see the best of Michael Wylie, right? And I wanted to see the best of him. With all these guys, I was getting a small sample size, so I wanted to see you at your best. Give me the best you got, right? I don't want highlights because that doesn't tell the story. I need the game. You want a game where Michael Wylie is at his best. Go watch him in 2022 against Arizona State. Boy, he devoured their asses. 224 yards rushing. 3 touchdowns. Another 3 or 4 catches for, 30 some odd yards. Ate their ass alive. So 5'10", as I mentioned, 210. Those are solid numbers. I don't have any issues with that. That's right around where you're going to be in the NFL. 215 is normally where you want your back to be. He's 210. I'm not tripping. 5'10", 210, perfect. You're good. Composite explosion grade, 33.5-inch vert and 9'11" broad, so essentially a 10-foot broad. Right? The composite speed grade, however, a lot better. And this shows up, and I'm going to explain to you how these numbers translate to the field here in a second. So the 40-yard dash, 4.51, as I mentioned, that's a good speed, right? 20-yard split, 2.61, that's a good 20-yard split, as, bared out by the grade. And then the 10-yard split, 1.55 is crazy. That's anything sub 1.6 for a 10-yard split, and you're moving, bro. And what that says is he gets to top speed almost immediately. It's a gift and a curse for him, if we're being honest. We'll talk about that here in a second. His composite agility grade is poor, and you see that, though. You do see that. Okay. Short shuttle, not good. 4.43 is terrible. Okay. 3-cone, 7.14, it's not terrible. It's not great either. Okay. But here's the thing that I like. And yeah, I don't like. So he's a monotone runner. And what that means, and I'm pretty sure you can kind of decipher what that means. He's a one-speed runner. He doesn't change gears. He is the same speed all the time. He doesn't know another speed. So while that can be good when he gets the ball in his hands, as evident of his 10-yard split, that once he revs up the engine, it goes to 5 immediately. The problem is sometimes you need it to be at 2 to set up 5. Sometimes you need it to be at 4 and then explode to 5. He's always at 5, right? And it's either all or nothing with him. It's either he's at 5 or he's at 0 or 1. I'll give you an example. When he approaches the hole on some outside zone runs, he's almost too patient, right? Like that hole is there, the opportunity for you to stick your foot in the ground and go. That hole is there and it opens up. You got to go, man. And it's almost like he has trouble like kind of reading where that cutback is. Where do I go? Right? You give him an opportunity, though. You get him the football and you get him just a sliver of space and he gets to 5. Look out. He's got some physicality to him. He finishes runs. He's got a nasty stiff arm. Like first of all, he's a dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield. Fantastic hands. You know what I see him as? I see him as Austin Eckler. A bigger version of Austin Eckler. What's Austin Eckler's 40? Austin Eckler is like a 4.5, 340 guy, right? That'd be my guess. I've never seen Austin Eckler as a 4.4 guy. He always struck me as a 4.5 guy. Well, he ran a 4.48. Ran a 4.48. The problem is Austin Eckler is way more explosive than Michael Wylie. Austin Eckler had a 40-inch vert, 40.5-inch vert. Austin Eckler's 3-cone was sub-7, like 6'9", 2, 6'9", 3, something like that. You know, that's not what Michael Wylie is. But he can catch it out of the backfield. He's physical, and he gets to top speed very quickly. His speed isn't that far away from Austin Eckler, who's 4.48. He's 4.51. He's right there in that same neighborhood. I actually like this dude. I like him more than Chris Rodriguez. Now, the question is, will they like him more than Rodriguez? Remember, they didn't draft Chris Rodriguez. The question is, did Lance Newmark, did Adam Peters like Chris Rodriguez last year when he was coming out of Kentucky? That's what you got to ask yourself. If the answer was no, they didn't like him last year when they were with their respective teams, Michael Wylie has a shot to take a spot, especially if he comes in here and he plays well and takes advantage of opportunities. Now, if they did like Chris Rodriguez Jr., Wylie's going to have a tough time taking Rodriguez's spot if all things are equal and both of them stay healthy throughout camp into the preseason and both of them perform at the level that I think they're capable of performing at. It's going to be hard for him to overtake him. Because to me, there's an opportunity. After the first 2 backs, everything's up for grabs at running back. Nothing's set in stone. I don't know how many backs they plan on carrying, 3 or 4, but we only got 2 backs as far as I'm concerned. So Rodriguez is a 3rd back, and until somebody unseats him, he's the 3rd back on this team. I think Michael Wylie, I'm going to go ahead and highlight him right now. I think Michael Wylie has a chance to unseat. Like, I think of all the players, Michael Wylie has the best chance to actually make the roster. Most of these guys, I see them as special teams or practice squad guys that in a year from now could end up on this active roster. You know, Adam Peters talked about that runway, right? That first year, guys come in, they learn, and year 2, they get bigger, they get stronger, they have a better working knowledge, they see what the league is like, and they've adjusted, and now they're ready to contribute. I can see a number of these guys being somewhere in that neighborhood. Wylie's the guy that I see as someone that could actually make the roster this year. I don't know how he's on special teams. Does he tackle? Does he get down there? Is he aggressive? If the answer is yes, if he plays special teams, I see Michael Wylie being on this roster this year. He'll step up in pass protection, stick his nose in there. Excellent pass catcher out of the backfield. We all know how much this offense that we'll be running under Cliff Kingsbury demands that you have a pass-catching running back, which is why they went out and got Austin Eckler. I think they're underrating Brian Robinson's ability to catch the football out of the backfield. I really think they're underestimating B-Rob's ability to catch the ball. But Wylie can catch the ball, and that's why he's here. And that's why Chris Rodriguez, I think, will be out because they want all of their backs. Did you listen to our new running backs coach? Did you listen to what he said? He said, we want all of our backs to be able to do everything, and you got to be able to catch the football. Chris Rodriguez ain't really a pass catcher for real. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. I like Michael Wylie. I think he's got a shot. Moving right along. AJ Woods, corner out of Pitt. And I feel bad because I did AJ dirty. I got his old jersey number. I don't got him with his new sparkly, shiny number 9 that he was rocking in his final season at Pitt. So I apologize, AJ, if you're watching this, man. I did you dirty, bro. I did. AJ Woods is really intriguing. So let me say this right quick. I wish I could mesh the two together. Chiggy, Anusium, and AJ Woods. I wish I could meld the two of them together. We'd have the perfect corner that could come in here and help us right away. Because everything that Chiggy isn't, AJ is, and everything that AJ isn't, Chiggy is. And that sucks. So AJ Woods, 5'10", 187, senior corner out of Pitt. 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 4 interceptions, and 25 pass breakups in his career at Pitt. Love the fact that he's got 2 sacks to his name. Love the fact that in each year that he got significant snaps, he had an interception. And I love the 25 pass breakups. Shows that you're around the football quite a bit. And the 7 tackles for loss, right? It means that you're aggressive, you're attacking the line of scrimmage. Enough. He could be better in that regard, but the biggest knock on AJ Woods is his size. He's not tall. He's not a big corner. The 187 doesn't even bother me. It's the 5'10", right? So let's get into his numbers. Composite size grade is poor, and that's the thing that's the reason he didn't get drafted, if you ask me. That's the reason he didn't get drafted. And I still think he should have been drafted back into the draft. He wasn't even invited to the combine. I listened to him talk about not getting invited to the combine and how that affected him and how disappointed he was in not getting the invite. He probably should have been there, to be honest with you, but I digress. 5'10", not an ideal height for a boundary corner, which is what he, and you know, the thing about him at Pitt is they moved him around. He played some safety. He played the nickel and he played boundary. I liked him most at boundary, believe it or not. And he talked about this. He said, the thing about being a corner at Pitt is they throw you on an island and they pretty much say, hey, man up, bro. And he said, they essentially put you in an uncomfortable position and tell you figure out how to make yourself comfortable. And I saw that. You know, I watched 2 games, and the first game, this man was in man coverage, and 90% of the time he was in man coverage. Of that 90%, 75 of it was probably bump, press, man-to-man, up, deleting the airspace, challenging the receiver. I said, oh, shit. Okay. And he was ready for the challenge, right? So the weight, 187, that doesn't bother me. Most corners aren't huge guys anyway. 16 on the bench. I actually think that's a good number for a guy his size. The vert, so we get to the composite explosion grade. It's good. And I think his agility and explosion numbers are ones that translate to the field. The vert 37.5, you see the quick twitch nature of his movement skills. So that's a good number. The broad at 10 foot, 3 inches, solid number. That's a good solid number. You get to his composite speed grade, it's elite. 4.40. He ran at the Pitt Pro Day. 2.55, 20-yard split, 1.48. Like that, my friends, is moving immediately out of the blocks. And you see it on tape. I'll talk about that here in a second. Composite agility grade, elite. The short shuttle, he ran a 4 flat. That's good. Really good. 3 cone, ran a 6.7. That's really good. So those are great numbers, right? And when you watch him get into press coverage and turn and run, there is no hitch. There is no choppiness. It is very fluid. It's one smooth motion from back pedal to turn and run, right? He does a great job of staying right there in the hip pocket of that receiver as he runs down the field with him. I was impressed with the coverage that I saw. Here was the issue. So the first game I watched, it was against West Virginia. Excellent coverage. But then I was thinking, what does West Virginia have? Who's even their quarterback? What receivers are they throwing to? Like, so you ask yourself all these questions. So I said, okay, I need to see him against Florida State. So I turned on Florida State. I want to see what Jordan Travis did against him. They didn't have Keon in that game or Johnny Wilson, right? So they didn't have Keon Coleman or Johnny Wilson, none of the big physical dudes. But they had this short guy in the slot, and he was cooking AJ Wood's ass in the slot. And it wasn't like AJ was getting smoked. It was 2 slot fades, one on each side. And AJ had great coverage, but the throw was perfect. And the guy was able to stack AJ, get on top of him, and AJ wasn't. And that's where the lack of length, size hurts him because he was in good position. But if he was 2 inches taller with, a longer wingspan, he would have been able to knock those footballs away. He couldn't do it because he was too small. And the guy that sized him up in the slot was the same size as him, probably 5'9", 5'10", maybe. Wasn't like this guy was 6'2". So he struggles with, physical receivers that can go up and climb the ladder and out-muscle him. I wish I could take his competitive spirit, his athleticism, his quickness, his agility, and put it in Chiggy's body, 6'1", 200 pounds. We'd have the perfect corner. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. I actually think AJ Woods has an outside shot of making this roster. Maybe not this year, but next year. Because remember, there are a lot of guys that are currently here now that won't be here. And I'm not just talking about the 1-year deal guys that Adam Peters and company signed. I'm talking about the guys that were here previous who are on the last year of their rookie contracts. Guys that were signed to contracts that are expiring. There's a lot of those dudes on the roster right now. Like Benjamin St. Juste, for instance. This is the last year of his rookie contract. Defoe, this is the last year of his rookie contract. Sam Cosmi, last year of his rookie contract. All those guys from that 2021 draft class, last year of their rookie deal. Right? De'Ami Brown, last year of his contract. So there will be some opportunities. You may not have those opportunities this year, but those opportunities may exist next year for some of these guys. AJ Woods is one of those dudes I'm keeping a watchful eye on because for me, he's the exact same as Mike Sainristil, except Mikey's way better. But he'd be a competent backup to Mikey Sainristil on the roster, right? Maybe a guy you put on your practice squad, and if something happens to Mikey, you can elevate AJ Woods type of deal, right? But I actually like him. He's got short arms, though. He's a shorter corner. That's what hurts him. That's what hurts him. I want to highlight him, though. I think he's a guy that probably could see his way onto the practice squad. He's interesting. I wish he were taller. If he were taller, he would have gotten drafted. So that's kind of how that works. Lastly, we got Coulson Yankoff. Man, I love his name. Coulson Yankoff. This is a unique dude here, man. I don't really know what the hell to make of Coulson Yankoff. He's got an intriguing story, hell of a background. I don't really know what to make of Coulson Yankoff. So let's talk about him real quick. He starts out his career as a quarterback, highly recruited out of Idaho, right? He goes to Washington, the University of Washington. So this dude is what we call a super senior. His first year of college ball was 2018. Goes to Washington, enrolls early, right? So he can be a part of spring ball, competing. And for whatever reason, shit doesn't go well. Some coaches leave, and he decides, I don't want to be here anymore. So he leaves Washington. The coach at the time, Chris Peterson at Washington, didn't like the way Yankoff left. And so he prohibited him from being able to transfer and immediately play at UCLA. So he had to sit out the 2019 season. He then becomes eligible at UCLA in 2020. But while he was there sitting out in 2019, he saw the emergence of Dorian Thompson-Robinson and realized not only is this kid good, but he's going to be the starter here for the foreseeable future. And I'm not going to be able to get on the field. And then they had another dude that was backing him up. And so he said, shit, I just got here and I ain't going to be able to play no time soon. And he's like, I want to help the team. I want to play. So he goes to head coach Chip Kelly and he says, man, how can I help, man? What can I do? And he switches positions. So initially he's a wide receiver, but he's not really getting a ton of clock. So then he says, hey, can I be a running back? Can I switch positions? Can I be a running back? So they made him a running back. And this dude's huge. This guy's 6'3". At that time, he was like 6'3", 220. And he looked big on the field. When you watch the film, he looks huge out there getting a running back, getting a rock, right? Getting some carries and shit. It's crazy. But he just did anything he could to try to help the team. And those are the kind of guys that stand out. Let me add one more thing to Michael Wylie. He's a captain. I know that matters for something here now. That they love that shit. They eat it up. So that's another thing to consider with Michael Wylie. Anyway, so let's talk about Coulson Yankoff's numbers here. 6'3", 233, super senior, as I mentioned. Started his career as a quarterback at UW in 2018. Then transfers over to UCLA, has to sit out a year in 2019, and stays there the duration of his career from 2020 to 2023. During that time, 47 rushes for 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has 9 catches for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. He also jumped back as a kick returner and had 16 kickoff returns for 334 yards and no touchdowns. So when I tell you he tried to do a little bit of everything to try to get on the field, he literally tried to do a little bit of everything to get on the field. It's nothing to catch him in the backfield, getting a handoff, nothing to catch him split out wide as a receiver. This guy's all over the place. Let's go through his numbers, and then I'll talk about what I saw on tape and what he maybe can morph into at the next level. So, as I mentioned, 6'3", 233 pounds. So the height is great, depending on what you consider him as. They have him listed as a fullback, so his height is going to be great for fullback. But if you saw the way Washington designated him, they have him as a tight end. So at 6'3", that's not great size for a tight end, but there are tons of 6'3" tight ends in the league that are special. George Kittle's 6'3", so that doesn't matter, right? Weight, 233 pounds, that's a problem. And that's something he'll have to work on. And he's already put on a ton of weight, making the transition from quarterback to wide receiver to then running back and now tight end. He's going to have to probably put on some more weight. Bench, 18 times, not terrible. Especially being that he used to be a quarterback. Not terrible. Composite explosion grade, 33.5-inch vert, solid. Broad, 9 foot 10 inches, almost 10 foot broad. That's a really good broad for a guy his size tight end. Composite speed grade, 4.6140 is a really good time for a guy his size. Again, I talk about this with tight ends all the time. I said anything sub 4.7 and you're fast. Anything sub 4.6, you fast. Anything sub 4.5, you elite fast at the position. So he's almost hovering around that sub 4.6 range. He's at 4.61. So that's difference making speed. That's Travis Kelce type speed in the league. That's difference making speed. That's Kelce. That's Mark Andrews. That's that type of speed. 2.63 20-yard split again. And then 10-second split, 1.57. Anything sub 1.6 and you moving. Composite agility grade, 4.25 short shuttle. Again, we're talking about a tight end. They got him listed as a fullback, but you're talking about a tight end. That's exceptional for a tight end. You're talking about a 3-cone of 7. So he's almost sub 7. I mean, think about it in this terms. Rosemy-Jacksaint would kill to have these numbers. And he's 2 inches shorter and like 40 pounds lighter. Anyway, I digress. Let me stop making fun of the disadvantaged. Everybody doesn't get to be blessed in every, category. So these are good numbers. So when you watch him on tape, he's a very unique dude, because I'm like, where do I put him? You can't put him in a box. Washington listed him as a tight end. He didn't play tight end in college. So you don't have any tight end tape. You don't have any instances of him blocking as a tight end, in line, on the move, or any of that. He's in the backfield a ton, more than any other position. He's a running back. That's what he was really at UCLA. And like Chip Kelly had so much confidence in him. There were 4th down situations where they'd hand the ball to Coulson Yankoff and he'd get the first down. And I went, man, there's a little something to Coulson Yankoff. He's got a little bit of agility to him. He's got a little bit of power to him. Obviously, he can run a little bit. Not at the running back position. clearly. But when you move him to tight end or fullback, that's exceptional speed for that position. He can catch the ball. I would like to see him catch it a little bit more. That's something I didn't get to see him do a ton of. Got to see him catch it once or twice. But I really want to see like him on the move, really moving up the field, up the seam, have to extend away from his frame, how he plucks the ball out of the air. I'd like to see that. I'm pretty sure he can do it. He's a tremendous athlete. Pretty sure he can do it. I just want to see it. I didn't get to see it. I got to see him run some routes. I got to see him catch the ball in the flats, and I got to see him run the football. He's interesting, man. I don't really like, so clearly he's undersized. Amani Rodgers was probably undersized last. Matter of fact, what was Amani Rodgers' weight when he came into the NFL? Armani Rodgers. Let's see what Amani Rodgers was when he came into the NFL. Amani Rodgers measured out at 6'5", 226, 33 1/8 inch arms, and a 9.5 inch hand size. Coulson Yankoff has the same hand size and just a inch shorter length arm, and he's 7 pounds heavier than Amani Rodgers was when he came into the NFL. Now, he's 2 inches shorter, but that doesn't matter. Now, the biggest difference is I think Amani Rodgers was running like a 4.5 something, but even the 4.61 isn't that far away. I think Amani Rodgers running like a 4.57 or something like that. So he's not that much faster. Like literally, I'm looking at Coulson Yankoff and I'm like, bro, you could take somebody's spot. You could come in here if the opportunity presents itself. And again, I talked about this earlier with knowing that the roster is turning over and that they didn't bring a lot of these dudes here. This is a guy that they brought in as an undrafted guy. If he comes in and he plays well, they don't have any loyalty to Cole Turner or Amani Rodgers. I think John Bates is safe because he blocks. He's carved out a niche for himself in this league. There's value in being a blocking tight end, you know. So I don't think Bates is going anywhere. I think where the real discussion is, who's TE4? I think they're going to keep 4 tight ends. Could be 3. Again, if you need to trim off some fat, they may do it at tight end. I don't think this offense carries a fullback. All right. So they've got him listed as a tight end, as I mentioned. Washington does. I think he's competing with Cole Turner and with Amani Rodgers. And again, you don't make the team, you can end up on the practice squad. He's intriguing, though. He's going to be one of the guys that I kind of key in on this offseason as we get into camp and into the preseason. He'll be one of those dudes I really want to check for. I'm fascinated with Coulson Yankoff. See what he's going to be able to do. Anyway, he's the last guy, the 11th and final of the undrafted free agents Washington has signed. We'll see what happens with these dudes. I highlighted, and I'll highlight Coulson Yankoff too. I don't think he'll make the team. I won't rule it out if they keep 4, but I don't think he'll make the team. But I highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 11 guys I think have a realistic shot at making the team, or making the. I need to make it 8. I didn't highlight Sam Hartman. He's got a realistic shot at making the practice squad as well. I highlighted 8 dudes out of the 11. So the 3 that I don't think have a chance are David N., the tackle out of Toledo, running back Austin Jones out of USC, and wide receiver Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. Those are the 3 I don't think have a shot. The other 8, I think, have a chance to compete for a practice squad spot. And of those 8, Michael Wylie, the running back out of Arizona, to me, has the best chance to try and crack the 53-man roster. Don't sleep on Ben Nickel either as an elite special teams player. But again, he'd have to unseat someone that I think the organization, by virtue of them bringing him back, they respect All-Pro Revo. But anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section and I'll get y'all out of here, man. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Door Gunner writes, need a Super Friend stream ASAP. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what you want me to say. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. JLG, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, have we forgotten that Jaden has to see Dexter Lawrence, DeMarcus Lawrence, Kayvon, Burns, Huff, Graham, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Parsons? Did I forget anybody? No, I mean, the division is loaded in terms of guys that can get to the quarterback. But that's part of the scheme, right? That's part of the scheme. Part of his dynamic ability is that you freeze defenders. They have to respect the fact that you might tuck that bitch and run, or you might pull it out of the running back's belly and take off, or that you might go RPO and it may look like a run and they have to freeze, because if it is a run, they got to play run. If you pull it out of his belly, they've frozen. Now you can throw the football. There's so many different elements to this. There's so many things that are going to help aid him in staying upright. And the offensive line may not be as bad as you think. That too, right? There are going to be times where we're going to have to drop back. Like, it's no way around that. We're going to drop back. They're going to have to protect. He's going to need time. But this offense is going to give him an opportunity to neutralize. You saw what the Eagles did. And I don't want to compare us to the Eagles because they got a crazy offensive line, but their offensive line had nothing to do with neutralizing Michael Parsons. It had everything to do with how they utilized Jalen Hurts and how they used read option and RPOs to neutralize him, to force him to have to make a decision, right? You can do that, is what I'm saying. Yeah, the division is loaded. We're fully aware. We know what's around us and what has to be done. But I think they're going to be fine. At least willing to give them a chance, right? Navy Ramjet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Navy Ramjet writes, evening, Lou. What's going on, Navy Ramjet? Thoughts on Zay Jones on a one-year deal? 6'2", has had production better than Diami as our number 4. Vet ad, I see top 10, maybe 5 run game. I mean, I wouldn't have any issues with him. I liked him in Jacksonville. Thought he did some really good things when he was healthy. He's carved out a niche for himself as a really, really good, 3rd, 4th option on the team. So I wouldn't have any issues with that. But clearly that's not the direction that they're going in, right? Isn't he still in Jacksonville? Did he get released? Did I miss something? I thought he was still in Jacksonville. Did he get released or something? Because I could have sworn that Zay Jones still had another year left on his Jacksonville Jaguars deal. Oh, no, he's a free agent. Huh. Okay. Yeah, they just released him. So, I mean, I wouldn't have any issues with it, but I don't see them doing that. Remember, they re-signed Jamison Crowder. They brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, and you still have Mitchell Tinsley hovering around. Not to mention you just drafted Luke McCaffrey, and you still got De'Ami Brown. I just don't see them doing anything else at wide receiver. Navy Ramjet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Keanu Reeves played the Redskins quarterback in The Replacements. Yeah. Sam Hartman looks like John Wick. I see Replacements 2 inbound. Look at side by side. A lot of people don't realize that movie, The Replacements, was loosely based off of the 87 Redskins, the Scab team, right? A lot of people don't realize that that's what that movie is loosely based off of, including the the backup quarterback, the black quarterback that they got out of jail. They made him a running back in the movie, but he was really the quarterback for Washington. And there's some bullshit because after he helped Washington win, they sent his black ass back to jail. That's bullshit, man. Like, that's crazy. But anyway, Sam Hartman. A lot of people like to talk about Sam Hartman's looks. I like his beard. I wish I could borrow some of his hair. That's all I want. Give me some of your hair, bro. Other than that, can you play quarterback or no? He does give off Keanu Reeves, John Wick vibes with the sideburns, right? With his side profile, I'll say. I could see how you could say that. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, thank you for the support as always. Who writes, hey, Luke, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. 3 questions. 1, do you think Hartman could be the long-term backup to Daniels? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see, right? He gives me backup quarterback vibes, but I think you would want a better athlete than him. Like, I know that your backup doesn't necessarily have to be an apples to apples comparison, but to me, it makes more sense if your backup quarterback is on the same athletic plane as your starter. Like how the Ravens did it with Lamar Jackson and having Tyler Huntley, that's the way I think you're supposed to do it. It was weird that Washington drafted Robert Griffin III and then had Kirk Cousins, and then they ran a totally different offense when Kirk was in because he couldn't do a lot of the things that Robert could do, right? So they had to run a little bit of a different offense. And if you're capable of doing that, great. But if you want to keep the offense kind of the same and run a lot of the same things, you want to have the backup have a similar athletic profile, if that makes sense. So that's why it makes sense that Mariota's his backup right now, because you can do everything with Jaden that you can do with Mariota, right? And I thought it was kind of a weird fit for Gardner Minshew in Philadelphia, because while Gardner has some athleticism similar to Sam Hartman and can extend, he's not Jalen Hurts. And when he came in, they struggled offensively, and Hurts had to come back early because he wasn't getting the job done, right? I kind of feel like that's what it would be here if you didn't have, if you had Sam Hartman as a long-term backup, but he could be. You never know. That may be what they envision him as. Him being, on the practice squad this year, or even the 3rd string this year, emergency quarterback. And then next year when Mariota leaves because he signed a 1-year deal, he moves into that 2 spot behind Jaden Daniels. I still would be looking to get a guy that, like, I would more so bring in a Josh Dobbs. Like if Dobbs is available next year, I'd rather bring in a guy like that and have him back up Jaden Daniels than to have Sam Hartman. But, they brought in Hartman for a reason, right? So we'll see. He says, 2, who do you think will lead the team in sacks this season? I think it could be – that's a great question. I really don't know, because I think Frankie Louvu could be in that mix as a blitzer. I think Dorrance Armstrong could be in that mix as they move him around on this defensive line. But I also could see those defensive tackles with all of the scheming that they're going to do. Because if we hold them to their word and take them at face value when they say, hey, if you a stud, we gonna scheme it up for you. Well, we got studs on the interior. And we saw what happened when Daron Payne was able to get frisky. And if they scheme it up for him, or they're able to create those matchups for him that he can win, that man had 11.5 sacks you know, just a season ago. So it you know, Dorrance has never cracked double digits. Frankie's never cracked double digits. Duran has. So it's easy to go with the dude that's done it before, but I can see one of these other guys finally getting it done. You know, Frankie's never played in a defense like this before. He could eat and eat good. I think I'm going to stick with the traditional look, and I'm going to just give it to Duran, though, and say that his athleticism is going to really shine through this year, and say that he leads the team in sacks. And then 3, do you think this is Jamin Davis's last year here? Yes, I do. I know y'all saw that they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They declined that on, 2 Fridays ago? Or was it last? I think they buried it on the day 2 of the draft, right? They buried that shit on Friday, day 2 of the draft, that they weren't picking up his 5th-year option, which we already knew. I told y'all when we got to the office, they're not picking up his 5th-year option. Knew they weren't going to do that. Yeah, I think this is his last year here. But he could come in, he could, you know, wow them this year, blow up, play well, and they could bring him back. Anything's possible. Don't rule anything out. Jamin Davis has never played in a scheme like this. They might unleash Jamin Davis for all we know. You know, you gotta remember, nothing is as it seems, and nothing is as it appears. Because you don't know what these guys can do in this scheme, because they were playing in an elementary. I won't say elementary, because part of the problem with Jack Del Rio was he was asking them to do too many things. He didn't simplify the defense. That was part of the problem. But he also wasn't very multiple in the things that he did in terms of packages and putting guys on the field and creating matchups. But he did ask them to do different things. It was kind of complex in what he was asking them to do. But he could have simplified the defense, and he could have, you know, put together packages that allowed guys like Khaleke Hudson to get on the field and blitz and be around the line of scrimmage. And he just failed to do that, right? This is going to be different because they're going to do that here this year. And they're going to simplify the defense. Less thinking, guys are able to go out and play, and that's going to benefit a guy like Jamin Davis. So, who knows? I say yes, it's his last year, but you can't be assured of that. But they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so that's the first step in it being his last year. But just because you don't pick up a guy's 5th-year option doesn't mean he's not going to be back with the team the following year. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB video channel. Writes, Dr. Umar got a better chance at joining the KKK than Ron's alleged 40 players on this roster getting Ron a Super Bowl ring. Did you have to go to that extreme? Really? No, Ron isn't getting a Super Bowl ring from anybody here. First of all, Ron getting a Super Bowl ring was contingent upon Sam Howell working out here. He said he left us a quarterback and this, that, and the third. And that if he had left us Sam Howell, if he had left us a quarterback that we could win with, yeah, I would think about sliding that man some hardware if we were to get one. But hell no, he ain't getting shit. He ain't getting a damn. And they made sure when they got here, they turned this bitch all the way over. All the way over. Rail Goated. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rail Goated, right? Numbers 0 through 19 is what JD is going to do. I wonder what number he's going to wear. I don't know if they're going to make Tress come up off that 5 or if he's just going to take another number. Like Caleb Williams already took 18 in Chicago. So I wonder what it is he's going to do here. I guess we got to wait to see. Because Jahan is 1. I don't think Jahan is moving off of that. Marcus Mariota is 0. I don't think that's gonna be nasty seeing a quarterback in 0, right? I'm gonna have to readjust my eyes there. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to wear the number 0. So I'm gonna have to adjust my eyes for that one. Diami's 2. I think 3 is open now that Joey Sly's gone. And I don't know what number Brandon McManus picked, but he doesn't get first dibs over the quarterback. If the quarterback comes in and says, yeah, I want to be number 3, McManus is going to have to pick a different number. Even though I don't think McManus has been 3 in his career either, though. But Sly was Sly 3 or he was 4? Sly was 4. I think Sly was 4. Or was Sly 6? Joey Sly was 6, I believe. Pringle was 3 last year. Byron Pringle was 3. He's no longer here. So 3 is available. 4 is available. Heineke was the last player to wear 4 here. What's B-Rob's number? 8. He's 8. So 4 should be available. 3, 4. Obviously, Tressway's 5. We'll see what happens with that. 6 should be available because I think that was Joey Sly's number. He's no longer here. 7, that's Joe Theismann's number. Even though it's not retired technically, nobody should be allowed to wear that. So Haskins disgraced it. God rest his soul. Nobody else should be wearing 7. So 8, B-Rob, I just said that. 9. Didn't Jeremy Chin already pick a number? It was in the double digits, though. Chin didn't pick a single digit number. He picked a double digit number. I think he picked something like 11 or some shit like that. I think 9 is, I felt like we had a defensive back wearing 9. What number does Percival Butler wear? I felt like one of them D-backs was wearing 9. That's what I felt like. I don't know. I'm tripping. In 9, Sonny Jurgensen, nobody's wearing 9, right? They gave that to Shane Matthews, which was a disgrace. Sonny Jurgensen was 9, right? Nobody should be wearing 9. Right? That should be retired, as a matter of fact. Same with 33 with Sammy Ball and Rick Owens' number, Bobby Mitchell. There's numbers that shouldn't be touched. Taylor's 21. So nobody's wearing 9. 10. I feel like somebody's wearing 10. Somebody's got to be wearing 10. But I don't remember anybody wearing 10. And the last guy that wore 10 was Antonio Gandy Golden. Curtis Samuel was wearing 4 last year. That's who was wearing 4. He had went from 10 to 4. He's no longer here. Luvu is 4. That's right. Somebody said Luvu is 4. Luvu is 4. He picked 4 already. So it's slim pickings, man. It's slim pickings, bro. Because a lot of the numbers, we just went through a lot of the numbers. 4 is already gone. 10, I think, is available. 11, I think Jeremy Chin took 11, I think. I'm not sure about that. 12, Jacoby Brissett was 12, so that should be available. He needs to wear a single-digit number. Can we agree on that? Like, could you imagine him wearing 12? That's nasty. That's nasty work. Like, 12 in certain uniforms looks dope. Not here. Like, Jacoby looked slow and unathletic because he wore 12 last year. He got to wear a single-digit number. He's too fast to wear a double-digit number. The last fast dude that was okay to wear a double-digit number at quarterback was Robert Griffin III. He wore 10. We got to get him 5. Tress has got to come up off of 5, man. What are we talking about? Tress, we love you. You had a hell of a run. All good things must come to an end. Tress, go get number 10, bro. Go get number 3. Like, what are we talking about right now? Go get this man the 3 jersey and let Jaden Daniels be 5. He's JD 5. Sovereign Legacy. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sovereign Legacy writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Sovereign Legacy? Exciting weekend. With the 20 guys brought in, we definitely know what a commander is. Athletic freaks that can be molded into what they want or need. Feels good, feels good. Clearly, they're looking for athletes. They told us what they wanted when they first got here. They're looking to get faster, stronger, more aggressive, and they were looking to arrive violently. And they said, this place is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. We've seen that. They're looking for leaders too. Don't forget about that quality. Guys with a C on their chest. That's important to them. That's another reason why I think Michael Wylie can make this roster. He was a captain at Arizona. So, yeah. We're starting to see what a commander looks like. That they called it a commander tag. We're starting to see what that tag looks like when they placed that on a commander. All 9 guys that they drafted essentially were athletically gifted. Pretty much all of the guys they brought in as UDFAs have an athletic profile, with the exception of Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint and Austin Jones out of USC. Those 2 kind of don't fit. They kind of don't fit what they've kind of instilled here over this, really free agency extended, right? Started with free agency and the kind of guys they brought in free agency. And it's extended all the way through these UDFAs. So, yeah. I digress. Anyway, that's the last super chat. I've talked your head off for over 2 hours and 30 minutes. So we're going to get out of here. I think that's a discussion we can have at another date and time, though, is what, jersey number. And we'll find out here shortly. He's going to pick a number here quickly. By the time we get to the rookie minis, and that's what, in a week from now, by the time we get to that rookie mini camp, he should have already, chosen a number. And we probably hear in the next 48 hours or so what number he'll be. Tress has got to come up off of 5, bro. Like, that's just how I feel. Like, Tress he's a good sport. And he was outside. I think I heard somebody say he was out at the draft party out at the harbor signing autographs. And he said, he was signing, his name with the number 5. And he's like, I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do that. He's a good sport. He gets it. He understands. I think he knows his time's almost up with the number 5. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louis T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next time, which will be Thursday. In the meantime, I'll be back with another installment of the Louis T Network podcast tomorrow, probably tomorrow night. But until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless and good night.